The Mind Tech Podcast, Episode 11, for May 23rd, 2013. Audio Setups. Mind Tech Podcast, Episode 11. Here we go. Once again, sitting in front of microphones, talking tech. I'm Gareth Davies in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Joe Ressington in London.
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Here we are once again, Mind Tech Podcast. We got some great stories and some great topics today, but I want to start off. I want to tell you guys a little bit about my visit to a certain computer store over the weekend. I visited the Microsoft store. Now, do you guys have Microsoft stores in the UK?
I don't know. I don't really go out much, so I don't know. Maybe
I know you have Apple stores.
Yeah, we've got Apple stores, but no, I've never seen a Microsoft store.
Well, this is like a new phenomenon that's been happening here in the US over the past maybe 2 years or so, where Microsoft basically, took Apple's concept and design of the Apple Store and decided to make their own and call it the Microsoft Store. So they opened one in the Century City Mall over here, which is, in the mall just around the corner from the Apple Store. They now have a Microsoft Store. So my wife runs a local Girl Scout troop, and Microsoft put on training classes for, users and stuff.
Indoctrination classes.
Pretty much. So they offered to do a digital photography class for the Girl Scout troop that my wife deals with. So when I found out about this, I was like, oh, I'll tag along. That'll be fun. So off we went to the Microsoft store to have a training class and for me to check out their stuff. So the store basically is a carbon copy of the Apple Store. I mean, it looks almost exactly the same inside. That they have people working there, the same kind of people that you'd see in the Apple Store. Very, very similar vibe, except they're all the computers are all like Acer and HP and things like that, but they're all running Windows 8. They have tons of Microsoft Surface tablets, Surface RT, and the regular Surface. And then in the corner they have like a big Xbox section where they have big displays for Xbox and games and things of that nature. So it was fun. I mean, I took a ton of pictures. I posted them out on my Flickr account so people can take a look if they want to. And it was amazing, dude, because they gave this training or session on digital photography. And it really reinforced why I'm a Mac user. Because nothing worked. And I felt really bad for the girl who was doing the training. I felt bad for her, dude, because it was horrible. So they have all these little tables and chairs, and they have all these laptops on the chairs, on the tables rather, all running Windows 8. And she goes up, big screen on the wall, and she runs a PowerPoint on digital photography. So she starts off with the history of photography, talking about film and processing, and we're all sitting there like bored out. Come on, this is supposed to, this is the 21st century. It's not 1952. What the fuck is wrong with you? And she's blah, 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 film, blah, 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 35 millimeter. I'm like, come on. So she finally gets to digital. She talks a little bit about framing the camera, digital cameras, blah, whatever. And she says, okay, so now I'm going to give all this. So there's like 8 or 9 kids. She says, I'm going to give all the kids a Windows phone, a Windows 8 phone. And she said, I want you all to go out throughout the store and take as many pictures as you like, and then we'll come back and we'll edit those pictures. So the kids are like, cool. So after spending what seems like an eternity to figure out how to take a fucking picture with these cameras, right, they finally figure out how to get to the camera app and how to activate it. So the kids are running around like maniacs, ka-cheek, ka-cheek, taking pictures of, the wall, the whatever. So they have good fun taking pictures of each other, taking all kinds of pictures around the store. And then they come back and they sit down and the girl shows up and says, okay, now we're going to get these USB cables and connect them to the camera and import the pictures onto the PC and then we'll edit them. Bad move. So first problem. None of the computers will recognize the phones.
Really? Jesus, that's bad, man.
All right, so you plug the phone in, nothing. So she's like panicking. She's rebooting the machine. She's logging back in. She's unplugging the USB cable, plugging it back in, powering the phone down, powering the phone up. Nothing. I mean, these are Windows 8 phones on Windows 8 laptops, and they won't fucking recognize the phone. So
that is bad. I mean, obviously, I had my problems with Linux and not recognizing my Nexus 4. But I mean, to be fair, Linux is made generally by enthusiasts,
right?
And it's, if you have technical problems like that, then it's, you don't have a corporate sponsor, you don't have Microsoft making the phone, and that would just never ever happen with Apple stuff. Would it? Can you imagine that you plug in an iPhone?
Oh, there's no way.
For all the problems that Apple has,
they'd be fired on the spot. If that was, they'd be like, okay, you're done, get out of here. And so the girl is getting flustered now, right? So she calls for help. So this other guy comes over, and he's fooling with him. And then out of the 7 or 8 laptops, they get 3 laptops to recognize the phones. And then they swap out the other laptops. They take them into the back. They bring out other ones, and it still can't work. And then the ones that recognize it, suddenly they start locking up. They're crashed. They're locked. The screen, nothing works. Can't move the cursor. So they got to reboot that, and it was a whole fiasco, dude. It was a nightmare. And
I would have definitely, if I'd known I was going to that situation, I would have definitely taken some Linux USB drives and said, "Hang on, let me have a go. Plug it in, right. Boot off that, no problem.
Just get it going." And so I took I took a picture of them fixing the laptops. I took pictures of all kinds of stuff. So I'm there with my iPhone, taking pictures. And I'm looking over at my wife, and we're both rolling our eyes thinking, thank fuck we're Apple users. Thank God we're using Macs. Can you imagine the pain and misery of fucking around with Windows? And then they finally get it working, and then they say, okay, this is how you edit the picture. So they pull up the picture, and they're like, look, you can change the saturation of the little slider. Ew, look, see, now it's dark, and now it's light. Look at that. Oh, look, and now look, here's a filter. It's just like Instagram. Look, boop. Look at that. They've changed. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is how we edit pictures? You know what I mean? It's like, come on. It was total shambles. It was like the first time they'd ever done it. It was like, it was like somebody on a whim says, "Oh, I know. Let's train some people on how to edit photographs, like right now." With no preparation, no nothing. Like, let's just do it and see what happens. Crazy.
That is crazy.
So that was my experience in the Microsoft Store. Although the Xbox section was very cool. They had a very cool Star Trek game on the big screen TV, which me and my son were trying to figure out how to work. But that was cool.
And they had some 4K TVs then.
Oh yeah, so we're there for, I don't know how long. We were there for a couple of hours, right? At the Microsoft Store. So we finally get out of there, and we were going to walk to the Apple Store because we wanted to. My wife needed a new case for her phone. As we were walking there, they have a big Sony store. Do you have Sony stores over there? No,
I think so. Yeah,
just Sony, right? All they sell is Sony shit: TVs, cameras, computers, whatever. So anything that's Sony, they got it in there. So I'm walking by, I look in, and they got 4K TVs on display. So I'm like, oh, I got to go check this shit out. So I go in, and there's like this big 60-inch 4K TV on the wall, then another one freestanding. And they're showing a football match of soccer, right?
Oh, I thought you meant hand egg. No, you mean proper football.
Yeah, proper football. In 4K. And I'm mesmerized. It's gorgeous, beautiful, like ridiculous quality, stunning, jaw-dropping resolution. I'm just standing there. I walk over to the other one, and they have like a table, and then right behind the table on the wall is another 4K TV. And it's showing, what's her name? Taylor Swift. She's prancing around, blah, blah, blah. I'm Taylor Swift, whatever. But on the table, right next to it, check this out, dude. They had a 4K tablet.
What, as the table itself, or just a handheld?
You could pick it up and look at it and pinch and zoom, and admittedly it was just showing like a photograph that you could move around, but the image quality was breathtaking.
How many inch was the tablet then?
It was pretty big. It was I don't know. I don't know exactly. I would guess maybe 13 to 15 inches, something like that.
Oh, it's a big beast. Yeah.
But it was amazing. And I'm looking at this tablet. I pick it up and I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, this is the future. 5 years from now, we're all tablets are going to be like this.
Yeah, probably.
But it was pretty amazing. So that's my Microsoft story. Did you get up to any computer shenanigans this week?
Well, I started a new blog.
Oh, I noticed that. Yeah, Joe's new blog.
Yeah. It's JoeRess, JoeRess.wordpress.com. And the idea is that it's, when we do this show, we prepare notes, or at least I do. No, we do. We both prepare notes for whatever we're going to be talking about.
That was mean, dude. That was uncalled for.
I know, that was a bit of a dig, isn't it? No, I'm just really anal with the notes that I prepare generally. If I've got to talk about something, then I'll write loads about it. And so I thought, well, it'd be a good place to put those notes and to kind of a bit of follow-up for people. So, I mean, I've only made one post on it so far, and that was about using Apache to share files.
What we talked about last week.
Yeah. It was actually, we were talking about it on the Facebook group, and someone was asking me how to do it. And so I thought, well, I'll write a really simple tutorial about how to set it up with Ubuntu. And I might do a Windows version of it because it wouldn't be that different. I'd only have to edit a few bits of it to make it work on Windows.
I like that you put like a warning section at the bottom. That was good.
Well, yeah. I mean, these things are not to be taken lightly. When you start doing things like that, you're potentially opening your system up to compromises.
Right.
And one of the main things is keep your system up to date. I mean, that people should be doing that anyway, but always do the security updates, no matter whether you're running Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. Sure. If you offered security updates from the system, you've got to do it.
Oh, that just reminded me. That's what else happened during the presentation. So they plug in the phone and they finally get it working, and they're like, okay, now let's go ahead and edit a photo, and all of a sudden Windows goes, bloop, I'm updating. And immediately, like no warning, just immediately started updating the software.
Yeah, I mean,
and you couldn't do nothing. You're locked out. That's it. You got to just wait till the update's done.
Yeah, with Windows, you do have that a lot, and you try and turn it off, and it says, "Don't unplug me because I've got to do with these updates."
Oh,
whereas
nightmare.
At least with Mac and Linux, it says these updates are available. Want to do them or want to not do them?
Yeah, it's up to you. But Windows is just like I'm updating. I don't care what you were doing. I don't care how important that document is you're working on and how soon you have to get it to your boss. I don't give a fuck. I'm updating right now. You got to wait.
Yeah. So as for my blog anyway, hopefully there'll be some more posts on that soon about whatever, tech tutorials and maybe reviews or whatever, really. It's not going to be just random thoughts. It's going to be focused on the kind of stuff we talk about on the show. So, yeah.
No, very good. I like it. I will put a link in the show notes for today's episode for sure. Yeah.
The other thing is that I don't suppose anyone listening will be able to help me, but you never know. I want to get into Bitcoin and Litecoin. We talked about that a few weeks ago. But the bottom line is I don't have the hardware to do the mining of it. I can't create my own, so I need to buy some.
Right.
And I've looked into buying it, and it's just such a nightmare. You have to fucking scan your passport in and stuff and send it to people to prove that you are you. So as an experiment, I'm trying to find someone who's willing to meet me in London, ideally central London, the West End or whatever, and sell me some Bitcoin and or Litecoin for cash. So if there is anyone out there listening who wants to sell me some and lives in London or can get to London easily, then let me know, because I'm out to buy some. I want to invest in it before it's too late.
Hey, you want to buy some Bitcoin?
Yeah. No, but it's kind of like
how much you want?
A test of the anonymous, if you could buy it for cash, then you're truly anonymous. I mean, it's kind of not, because I'm publicly saying this now, but
how would you verify that, though? Some dude shows up and meets you and says, yeah, I got some Bitcoin. You may have some money, and by the time you get home, it'll be in your account. I mean, how does that work?
I'm not going to do that. I'm not stupid, am I?
But he's going to have to show.
I've got a smartphone with, it would have to be somewhere either with Wi-Fi or at least decent signal.
You could transfer it over right then and there in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. And these things, there's no chargebacks with Litecoin and Bitcoin. Once it's transferred, unless I decide to transfer it back, that's it. It's mine.
Right.
So it would literally be, I'm looking at my screen, right, that has come, there's the cash, sort of thing. There doesn't even have to be any trust or no more than a few seconds of trust involved.
Sure.
I mean, he could transfer it to me and I could run off, but that's about it, really.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to see how that turns out, though. I mean, if somebody is willing.
I think it's going to take a few weeks before that works out, because I'm trying to find various places to publicize my quest.
You could always post it, post it online, post it on like Craigslist or there's another one like Craigslist that you guys use in the UK. What's it called?
Gumtree. We do have Craigslist, but it's quite small. But yeah, I could try that. I've posted on the Litecoin forums, because at first I was only really interested in Litecoin, but I thought, well, Bitcoin as well. I mean, I'm only looking to spend about £100 on each, to
just say I'll meet you in a public place like a Starbucks or something, and
exactly.
And then we'll so there's no issues, and then just knock it out.
I was hoping more for a pub with Wi-Fi than Starbucks, but
I don't know. Are there pubs with Wi-Fi? Does that exist?
Yeah,
really?
Of course, man. Yeah.
Oh,
most pubs have Wi-Fi these days.
Like free Wi-Fi?
Yeah, free for customers. They usually have WPA or WEP with a password that you just ask the bar staff for, and then jump on. And yeah.
Oh, that's
I mean, think about it. If you're running a pub, why not offer Wi-Fi?
Yeah, for people to log on with their smartphones. I don't think you see many people with laptops hanging out in the pub getting all fucked up.
Well, no, yeah, but you see, you people have a different culture. I know that obviously you come from the UK originally, but you're too indoctrinated. You people have bar culture. If you go to a bar, you go there to get shit-faced, and that is it. Whereas people will go to a pub and just have a coffee or one pint, and that's it, at lunchtime or something.
That's crazy, dude. What the fuck are you going to a pub for to have one beer?
Well, because it's not about... it's just a different culture. It's granted, I never go to a pub and have one beer or a coffee. I go and get shit-faced.
You can't just have one. It's nuts. You can,
Some people do, though, man. Like, they go to do the crossword and have one or two beers and socialise with people. And the pub is basically a place to hang out with people.
And get fucked up.
Well, no, it's to hang out with people you don't want to invite around to your house.
Exactly, yeah. You're not going to go to a pub and say, I'll have a coffee, please.
Some people do. And when I used to work in a pub, I used to fucking hate when people would do that.
That's so weird.
Yeah, people do it. Anyway, so some other things from this week. The new Xbox came out yesterday. I don't suppose you've got anything to say about that.
Well, it was very underwhelming. And
it didn't come out, but they announced it.
It's very retro. It's very 1986 VCR type look.
Yeah, it just looks like a big
video.
Box,
it's like, where do I put my VHS fucking tape?
Yeah. I mean, I don't play games, and you don't really play games either, do you?
No. I don't know, dude. I mean, like being in the Microsoft store over the weekend, the definitely the coolest part of the store was the Xbox corner, right? Everything else was just boring, generic PC garbage. And then you go to the Xbox and you're like, wow, check this shit out. Big ass screen, Star Trek, you're Captain Kirk running around the fucking Enterprise and shit, and all these games and stuff, and it was super cool. And then you leave the Xbox and it's like suddenly, boredom fucking city. So I'm just wondering, you know, are they finally going to fuck up their only cool deal?
Well, we'll see, because it has been very popular, the Xbox, and it's profitable for them, and it's one of their major income.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool system. Well, you know, the 360, it's a cool system. You know, you can hook it up to watch TV, movies, play games. You know, it's a cool little system. And now
for a lot of young people, that is the way they get on the internet as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So doing this to the Xbox, I mean, I guess time will tell whether or not it truly, you know, fucks it all up for them. But we shall see.
Did you want to quickly touch on the new Star Trek film then before we get into the news?
Yeah, I saw it this week. I went to see it, and it's good.
It looks like shit to me.
It's very, I mean, you know, like we talked about Oblivion a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't amazing, but it didn't suck. It was okay. Well, that's Star Trek Into Darkness.
What was better then, Oblivion or Star Trek?
I don't know, that's a tough one.
So it's similar then?
Yeah, they were both good, you know? I mean, they were very average science fiction movies. They weren't horrible, but they weren't like, you know, you're walking out of the cinema thinking, fuck me, that was amazing. That's not happening either.
And was he Khan then?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I called this fucking last year. It's Khan. It was obvious.
And did he have a Khan?
Yep, that was in there.
All right, nice. I'm not that interested. It's kind of we spoke about this on a premium show, didn't we? I'm just not really. I don't know. I was really into Star Trek TOS, the original series, and the Next Generation to a slightly lesser extent. But I just can't help but feel these new films are just pissing all over the memory of it.
Here's what's happening. This movie definitely paints a very clear picture of what they're going to do with these movies, and apparently, I mean, from what I can garner from you know, the first Star Trek and then Star Trek Into Darkness, is that these movies is basically going to be the original series greatest hits, right? It's like a you know what I mean, when you buy a greatest hits album. That's what they're going to be. They're going to take all the best episodes from the original show and then just kind of mix them up and revamp them into these movies. There's a few nice touches in there. You know, they mention Harry Mudd. You know, they mention Mudd in it, and they talk about Christine Chapel, things like that. Lots of homages to Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, also.
Yeah,
and while Benedict Cumberbatch is really good as Khan, he's very menacing and very believable as a villain. He ain't no Ricardo Montalban. You know?
Yeah. Well, everyone sees him as Sherlock now.
Right. He's great as Sherlock. I think he's awesome in that show.
I've never seen it. So.
Oh, it's a great show. You should definitely check it out and watch a few episodes. It's very, very good. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was good. It was okay. I mean, you know, I didn't come out disappointed. It was all right.
Yeah, fair enough. Not exactly a glowing endorsement for it, but yeah, I think I'll wait for the DVD or the Blu-ray.
It was okay. It wasn't, you know, I would have loved to have come out of there saying, "Oh my God, that movie was amazing," but no, that's not the case. Not even close.
I'm hoping to be amazed by World War Z, which you think looks like absolute shit.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Maybe I mean, movies like that. I mean, when I see the trailers, my impression of it is it's going to be garbage. But I would happily be wrong. You know, I mean, if it turns out to be great, then that's awesome. I'd love it to be a great movie. But I kind of think it's going to blow.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, when I saw the trailer for Fight Club, I thought that looked like absolute shit.
Yeah, same here.
And then a couple of years later, when I watched it, I was just blown away by how amazing it was.
I agree completely. I remember that. I remember seeing that trailer, you know, a few months before it came out. And the thing that stuck in my head was when Edward Norton is saying, "Yeah, I want to fight William Shatner." You remember that in the trailer? See, I'd love to fight William Shatner, and that always stuck in my mind. So I remember the trailer. But I thought this is going to be just some dopey, retarded film, bunch of fucking imbeciles beating each other up. I don't give a shit. Yeah. I don't care about that.
Like it looked like a boxing movie.
Yeah,
or something.
these morons are going to be like, betting on each other, like he can beat him or he can beat him, and it's just going to be a retard fest, But then when you watch the movie, even though the movie's about fighting. Even though the movie contains fights, the movie is not about fighting. Not even close. Not even close.
It's really just not. I mean, and the book is even further removed from it. So that is an example, anyway, of a trailer not doing justice at all to it.
Yeah, so, I would agree.
But it does go the other way as well. Sometimes trailers look awesome, and then the film's just meh.
True.
So.
Yeah,
and I think you might be right about World War Z, but time will tell.
Yeah, you can't tell until you actually sit down and watch it. So I think it's going to be shit, but I'd gladly be wrong. If it turns out to be awesome, I'll be happy. But we shall see. All right, shall we do some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here is the news. Well, let's kick it off here with some Julian Assange news, who's still held up or hold up. What is it? Hold up or held up in the
hold up. I think
in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. How far is that from where you're at? Is it pretty close by?
I don't know specifically where that is, but most of the embassies are around sort of Trafalgar Square, West Endish.
Okay.
So, about sort of half an hour on a train, maybe.
Oh, okay. Not too far. Okay, so this story comes from Boing Boing. UK spooks' candid opinions of the Assange affair revealed. Julian Assange has presented a set of Freedom Information Data Protection Act liberated from messages from GCHQ, the UK spy headquarters, concerning his own case. According to Assange, the messages reveal that UK spies believed that the Swedish rape inquiry against him was a fit-up aimed at punishing him for his involvement in WikiLeaks. Many believe that the Swedish government would have aided in Assange's extradition to the USA, where there is a sealed grand jury indictment against him. He also revealed cables relating to the spy's candid opinions about his sheltering in the Ecuadorian embassy. Then there's a little snippet here from the actual documentation that he got. It says, a message from September 2012 read out by Assange apparently says, they're trying to arrest him on suspicion of XYZ. This is definitely a fit-up. Their timings are too convenient right after Cablegate. A second instant message, a conversation from August last year between two unknown people, saw them call Assange a fool for thinking that Sweden would drop its attempt to extradite him. The conversation, as read out by Assange, goes, he reckons he will stay in the Ecuadorian embassy for 6 to 12 months when the charges against him will be dropped. But that's not really how it works out, is it? He's a fool. Yeah, a highly optimistic fool. So maybe Assange jumping into the Ecuadorian embassy and them granting him asylum was a very, very wise thing to do. It really does seem that if he had gone to Sweden to face these charges, he would have been arrested and then quickly extradited to the United States, where he could have spent, or probably spent a long time in jail.
Well, it's worth mentioning that this is not the official line of anyone. This is intercepted IM messages between just two people working at GCHQ, which is the government's communications headquarters.
Yeah.
So it's just like me and you talking. Well, I mean, it's a little bit different because they're working in there, but it's just what two dudes reckon.
Sure.
That this is a stitch up. He didn't really rape her. And if he goes to Sweden, he's fucked. He's definitely going to America. So it's, I don't know, it's what everyone's thinking. And it's not confirmation. It's more a case of the government insiders are thinking it too, but it's not really a shock, that, is it?
Well, no, this is really, everyone is suspected this from the get-go, that this is what and Assange included. He obviously suspects this, otherwise he wouldn't be, I mean, if he thought he could go to Sweden to face this and then that would be the end of that, I'm sure he'd hop on a plane tomorrow and go over there and take care of it. But the fact of spending anywhere from 70 years in prison in the United States is something that is not too appealing.
Mm.
So hanging out in the Ecuadorian embassy makes a lot of sense. Now, if the Swedish police force, what's to stop them from sending a couple of cops over to London to interview him at the Ecuadorian embassy, just to show up and say, okay, here's the charges against you, and do like an official interview there, and then take it from there.
Being inside that embassy gives him, what's the word for it? Immunity.
Yeah,
from even talking to them. Never mind.
Right, but for them to show up and question him, it would add something to the ongoing, I guess, presumably ongoing case. It would move it forward a little bit, because right now they're in kind of stalemate. Nothing. You can't move forward at all. You're just locked in this position. Unless he leaves the embassy, and no doubt he'll be promptly arrested by the British, then deported to, or extradited rather, to Sweden, and then from Sweden probably extradited to the United States, and then that's the end of Mr. Assange.
Yeah. Well, he's effectively in prison at the moment. He has been for 11 months in the Ecuadorian embassy. I'm sure it's a lot nicer than prison, but
I'm sure it is. Yeah. His freedom is severely restricted. He can't just walk out of there unless he does, on the down low. But other than that, he has full creature comforts. He's got television, food. He can do pretty much whatever he wants, other than leave the building.
Sounds like prison in the UK. Daily Mail.
But it's interesting though. Very, very, very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how this eventually plays out, because this stalemate can't last forever. He can't live the rest of his life in the Ecuadorian embassy. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's got to be some kind of way out for him eventually.
Well, who knows? I mean, he might end up being there for years and years.
Yeah.
He might die in there. For all we know.
Yeah.
Or they might break the doors down and drag him out, kicking and screaming.
For what, though? For a minor sexual offense?
Well, from my understanding of it is that the accusations against him are not minor, and he is alleged to have raped a woman, which, if that is true, it is not a minor offence by any stretch of the imagination. The chances are it's bollocks. But if it isn't bollocks, then he should obviously.
But didn't the woman who apparently is involved in this drop all charges, or say that no, he didn't rape me, but the state is still pursuing it?
I don't know about that. That's the first I've heard of that. But to be fair, I haven't really kept that up with the story, so I'll have to look into that. Yeah,
interesting stuff. We'll keep our eyes peeled on this, see if anything happens. What we got next?
Okay, the next one. Chinese hackers gained access to thousands of surveillance orders, says Washington Post. When Chinese hackers attacked Google in 2009, they may have gained access to years' worth of government surveillance records, the Washington Post reports. Google reported the hack publicly years ago, saying that the sophisticated attack resulted in the theft of Google intellectual property and the partial compromise of some human rights activists' email accounts. But according to anonymous government officials, hackers also compromised a database holding thousands of court orders requesting information about or access to specific Gmail accounts as part of the law enforcement activities.
Isn't this interesting that in order for us to find out the depth of the surveillance that takes place in the United States, it's got to be through Chinese hackers?
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's kind of bizarre that a foreign power has to hack into, or reportedly, whether or not they actually did, I don't know, get Google intellectual property that the government has been requesting vast amounts of data from private Gmail accounts. That's, to me, that's fascinating that the hackers have to do this, you know.
Yeah. Well, what they were looking for was to find out whether the government knew about their spies, basically, to see if the government was had these orders on the Chinese spies that were within the United States. So they were kind of just looking to see what the score was. Have we been rumbled yet, or not?
Do you think that if you were able to see the exact depth and scope of government surveillance into private citizens' lives, and not just speculation, but 100% factual information, if you could see that, your mind would just fucking explode?
Not really, because it's just, dude, it would confirm what I've suspected already. It's like when we covered a story, I think last week or the week before, and you seemed really, you said it was the difference between speculating about whether alien races exist and them landing on the White House lawn. But to me, it makes no difference, because it's just so obvious that they have these powers and massive logs of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Just why, if you were to show me around the data center and give me SSH access to the servers, and so I could, have a look at what was on them, it wouldn't surprise me at all, man. I don't see what the big.
See, I think it's. I mean, I have lots of suspicions. I suspect that all this stuff is going on, and I'm pretty certain that it is. But these are just. I don't know. And
you live in hope that it doesn't happen. Is that?
Well, no. I mean, I'm pretty sure it does, but to what extent? That's the issue. I mean, and to finally know that and be 100% certain that this kind of invasive intrusion into private citizens that have done no wrong is it would be a little disturbing.
Well, what would surprise me and shock me was if I were to be let into those data centers and were to see that they can actually use the data that they are mining and collecting to do something useful. Because the amount of data that we're talking about, if they really are collecting every email, every phone call, every website we visit, etc., then the amount of data is so vast that there's almost no way they could usefully extract anything from that.
I don't know, dude. There's the data mining techniques, I mean, even for 10, 15 years ago, were pretty staggering. So imagine what it's like now. There's a web. I'm trying to. I'll dig this out, and if I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But there's a website that you can go where you put in your Facebook username and password, and this website pulls all your data from Facebook, and will basically give you a real nice graph, pie charts, bar charts, and graph out all of your data so it's easily readable as far as, what topics are you into, what friends do you communicate with mostly, and you can get a really good overview of your Facebook life that you might not be aware of. And that's just...
And all you have to do is give them your Facebook login and password.
Right, yeah.
Sounds a bit dodgy to me, man.
Well, I mean, whatever you're putting on Facebook is public anyway, so, whatever.
Yeah.
But you get like an overview, and then you can see things which you wouldn't necessarily have been aware of. Now, this is just like some goofy little program that's publicly available. Imagine the kind of data mining technology that exists behind closed doors.
Yeah. No, I can see the point, but the fact is that there's so many people out there using the internet and phones and everything. And obviously, if you're going after one person in particular, if they suddenly decided that I was a threat to whatever, then they could find everything about me. Yeah, right. Obviously.
Yes, yeah.
But I can't see them wading through the billions of people on this planet and deciding who is a threat and who isn't, and who should be focused on and who shouldn't, based on all this data.
Well, there's a lot of criteria going on here. It's not just like, oh, this guy looks shady, let's take a look at him. There's a lot of in your life. If you're throwing up certain red flags in certain areas, they'll take a look at you, and when they take a look at you, they might look at you and do it detailed, and then think, "Oh, this guy's harmless." Next, on to the next, Or they might take they might take a look and think, "Oh, wait a second, let's dig a little deeper here."
You're right.
But you could say things or do things it'll pop up on their radar, and they'll take like just a quick cursory glance at you and do a quick scan, and he's nothing. Nah, let's move on, forget him, or not. But I'm pretty sure stuff like that happens, but I don't know. It's all an assumption, but it probably is happening, and at a very deep level. All right, let's go on to our next story here. Let's see. U.S. shuts down Guantanamo Wi-Fi in response to anonymous threats. The U.S. military has shut down Wi-Fi access at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba after receiving threats from the hacktivist collective Anonymous. Army Lieutenant Colonel Samuel House confirmed the move Monday, telling the Associated Press that wireless internet service was shuttered as a precautionary move and that access to Facebook and Twitter through military networks had also been cut off. Now that's interesting, right there.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That they have access to Facebook and Twitter through military networks. I've always assumed that was a big no-no. It's a little bit like if you work, if you're working at a big financial institution or something, and you're sitting at your desk working, you shouldn't be on Facebook or tweeting. You should be working.
Yeah, even if you work in a nothing fucking office that just does nothing but who knows what. Most sysadmins who run the servers and computer systems, they block YouTube, Facebook, Twitter to stop people goofing off. Yeah,
because there's a massive time suck, right? If you're at work, you should be working on your spreadsheets or doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. You don't want to be spending hours, chatting with your friends on Facebook or posting tweets or watching videos on YouTube. Chances are they're going to block those sites. So the fact that those sites are available on a military network, that's kind of quite telling.
Well, except that presumably that is one way that soldiers would communicate with their families and stuff if they're posted in far-flung places all around the world. That's true,
yeah. Yeah, you're right there. But then that would only be, I'm sure they would tier the network so that, if you're in your barracks on your laptop, then it's cool to hang out on Facebook and chat with the family at home. But if you're, in a secure facility, you wouldn't have access to fucking Facebook. So it says that last week, Anonymous threatened to disrupt activities at the controversial detention camp as part of its Op Gitmo campaign. The group launched the campaign in protest of the treatment and allegedly wrongful detainment of Guantanamo prisoners.
I don't think there's any fucking alleged about it, is there?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, they locked people up more than 10 years ago and just fucking threw away the key and didn't give them any trial or anything.
Right. Yeah. And then
anyway,
that's the big red flag there, is that they can just basically take people off the street, just plonk them there.
And most
lawyer,
of the people in there,
trial, none of that.
Yeah, they've not had any. They tortured them a bit to try and get some information out of them, and that's it. No trial, no nothing. And then when are these people going to be released? People like Sheikh Arma, or Amar, I don't know how to say that, who's the last British citizen who's still there. British resident. He's a Saudi citizen, or was a Saudi citizen, and he's been there for 11 years with no trial or anything. And what the fuck, man? How can A, they get away with it, and B, we stand by and watch them get away with it, or watch you get away with it? How are people in America allowing this to happen, their government to detain people without trial, for what?
No, I agree.
Combatants.
Well, that's the whole Homeland Security nonsense. I mean, I agree completely. I mean, if whether you're a bad guy or not, you deserve a fair trial.
And I'd hate to go on too much of a rant and point too many fingers, but I've been drinking, so fuck you. But it's your fault, Gareth. You are living in America. I mean, I suppose you're not a proper citizen, are you? Or are you?
No, I'm not, no.
No, you're not. So it's not quite your fault. But everyone you know, all of you lot are complicit in this for allowing this to happen, for not starting a fucking revolution and burning down the fucking government buildings and saying, sort this shit out.
Yeah, but it's apathy is the main rule of thumb in this country as it is in the UK. I mean, most people don't give a rat's ass.
People get. I saw you tweeted this week that you saw two guys passionately arguing about some sports bullshit.
Yes,
and just imagine if they had that passion about something proper like Guantanamo and all of the other shit.
No, absolutely. I mean, and it's just, look at sport in general and the rabid fans that are involved with it, who are
people fight each other,
passionate,
physically fight each other.
Crazy passionate over basically some guy fucking around with a ball.
Exactly.
Right? You get some dude who can kick a ball or can put a ball in a hoop. And these people are ranting and raving and running around like these fools just fucking cured cancer or something. It's unbelievable.
I despair sometimes, I really do.
It's lunacy. But, the real things that go on in this world, nobody gives a fuck. But, the manager of some football team gets fired. End of the fucking world.
Well, retired, actually. Didn't get fired.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Whatever.
Alex Ferguson, I mean, he's been... For nearly 30 years, he's been the manager of Man United, and it is a reasonably big deal within the sporting world. So you'd expect it to be big headlines on, as we say in the UK, the back pages.
Yeah.
Because in the newspapers, the sport section is always at the back.
Back page.
And you'd think it'd be big news and maybe get a little mention on the news, but it's been fucking main news.
It should be the back page of the newspaper, right? Or it should be the front page of a specialist sports magazine. And it should get like 3 seconds on the regular news right at the end after the weather.
Yeah.
That's in rational, logical, normal life. That's the way it should play out. But in the way, which way does it play out? Front page news, people ranting and raving about it. We're living in a fucking lunatic asylum.
Exactly. We've gone a bit mindset here. So
we have a little
is there
bit, but still.
Anything more to say about shutting down Wi-Fi and stuff?
Well, the last thing I want to make is that the military is apparently admitting that Anonymous have teeth.
That's true, actually. Yeah, even the U.S. military are scared of Anonymous.
They're saying these guys are a legitimate threat and or pain in the ass. If they weren't, they'd be like, whatever, fuck them. We're not doing nothing. What do we care about these bunch of fucking retards in their parents' basement on their fucking PCs? We don't give a shit. But no.
For the record, I don't think there are a lot of retards in there.
Well, I don't either.
I would not want to have a fight with them, put it that way.
No, of course not. I mean, no, I wouldn't think. But I'm just saying that if they were nothing, then that's the opinion that they would have. But the fact that they've shut down the Wi-Fi makes you think that they're like, oh, okay. Maybe these guys are up to something. All right, how about a quick break?
Yeah, go on then.
Let's do it.
You can now hear all of the Mindset Central podcasts while on the go with the Stitcher Smart Radio app. On-demand news, talk, and more on your mobile phone. The latest episodes at Mindset Central are always available for you. No syncing needed and no memory or storage wasted. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android phones, and beyond. Downloading is easy. Go to Stitcher.com or check out your app store. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to MindsetCentral.com.
You're listening to the Mindset Network.
Paratalk, an intimate discussion on all things strange. This is a show where more questions are raised than answers are given, and things sometimes really do go bump in the night. Hosted by Reeves Cook and Gareth Davies. You can listen to Paratalk at MindsetCentral.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Gareth from MindsetCentral.com. Just coming on really quickly to talk to you about subscribing or donating to Mindset Central. Right now, we average about 17 brand new podcasts a month on Mindset Central, and that's for free. So you get that content for free. It always has been free, and it will continue to be free. But just take a moment to imagine the time and the effort it takes to put all that together, plus also creating, building, sustaining the website and the server costs. We're constantly finding ourselves reaching the point that sometimes is the breaking point, and we're up against that old foe of time and money. And we're hoping that with your help, we can break through this wall. Not only do we want to continue with Mindset Central, but we want to build upon it and create something very special on the internet. So please think about helping us and becoming a subscriber. By becoming a subscriber to Mindset Central, you'll have access to the subscriber section, which provides exclusive, all-new podcasts and a lot more. The subscriber section has and will continue to grow into an area that you will want to be a part of. And with monthly access priced at that of a large coffee at Starbucks. So for one coffee, you get access to the subscriber section, packed with content that is continually added to on a weekly basis. So please help us. Help us by becoming a subscriber. Thank you. And we're back in theaters from Friday. All right, so what we're going to talk about in our main feature this week on the Mind Tech Podcast is our podcasting and or audio setups. Now, obviously, I do a lot of podcasts here at Mindset Central. You know, not a day goes by usually where I'm not either recording a podcast, editing a podcast, or uploading a podcast. And Joe, of course, is a musician and works heavily in digital audio using his computers and his software to create pieces of music. And no doubt if you'd listened to this past episode of the Mindset Radio Hour with Joe Dunn, you would have heard some of Joe's music on that show. And nice job too, Joe. Great stuff. I really like those tracks.
Thanks, man. It was unusual selections
that he picked.
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Rise of the Idiots, dude. I was humming that all day Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
Which bit?
All of it, dude.
All right,
rise. It's great stuff.
Cool.
Very
and
nice.
yeah, obviously everyone who has listened to the show has heard my music as well.
I'm sure they have. And if they have not,
they literally have, because my music is on this show.
I see what you mean. Yes, that's true. But if they want to get into your regular music, you can either check out the Mindset Radio Hour, which came out this past weekend, or I'll put a link in the show notes for Joe's website on SoundCloud, where you can check out the full versions of a couple of his songs. Very good. All right, so let's get into it here. So, podcasting. Now, I started podcasting way back in the ancient times of 2004, 2005. And it was a very, very primitive affair, to say the least. Now, just recording your voice onto your PC or Mac or whatever computer you have is something that can be done relatively easily. Most laptops will come with a built-in microphone and some kind of sound recording software, and you would just hit record and talk, and away you go. But the quality would be shit. The main problem I found when I started podcasting way back when was how to record a Skype conversation. I remember when I started doing Nervous Teeth way back in the day. Nervous Teeth is an old podcast I used to do. We tried a bunch of different internet telephony applications so we could talk over the internet and record. And the one we settled on was Skype, purely because it had the best sound quality. But once you try to record Skype, you usually find that you can record your voice without a problem, but you can't get the other person's voice, or vice versa. You'll get their voice and not yours. So it was a real challenge to get those two mixed together. So initially what I did was I used a mini disc recorder. Remember those?
Yeah, I had one in 97, yeah.
Yeah. And I used the output from my computer, the audio out that goes to the speakers, and I would plug that into the mini disc recorder. And then that would capture the Skype output and the mic output from myself, and you'd get both conversations recorded on a mini disc. So in the early days of Nervous Teeth, I would record the entire show on the mini disc, and then afterwards play that disc back into the computer in real time and then edit it that way. Now, it worked, and the quality was pretty good, but it was very, very time-consuming. Because if you had a 2-hour show, playing that back, you'd play it back in real time, therefore it's 2 hours. So yeah, it would take a while. But over time, we figured it out, we got it working, and here I am today, where recording a Skype conversation is trivial, and you get all the quality. So the hardware that I've used, I started off using a cheap Radio Shack PC microphone, which sounded pretty crappy, but it was all I had. I didn't know anything about audio or anything like that, so everything's been a journey of discovery and trial and error. But I now have settled on a pretty decent podcasting setup where I get very good sound quality from myself and whoever I'm talking to over Skype. Now, with Joe, obviously, he has a pretty good setup also, so the quality of both of our voices is pretty good. So what I use for hardware-wise, the microphone I'm using is a Shure PG58 vocal microphone, and that's a XLR plugged into a mixer, and I have a Behringer 1202 12-input mixer. So the mic goes from my voice to the mic to the mixer, and then from the mixer I have that going into an analog to digital conversion box, which I use the Griffin iMic audio interface. So I have the analog going into that, and then out of that is a USB. Then the USB goes into my Mac, and I use that as the digital input for the sound, which is done in real time. What kind of stuff do you use to capture your voice on your end, Joe?
Well, the main difference between what I use and what you use, well, there's two differences. One is that I don't use a mixer. When I make my music, I do all the mixing aspect of it in software, in Pro Tools.
Okay.
But I've got two USB audio interfaces. The one that I use in Windows, which is the M-Box Mini, which is the Pro Tools box made by DigiDesign. But to talk to you in Linux, I use an older one, an M Audio Duo.
Okay.
USB Duo. But the other difference is that my microphone, the Rode NT2, is a condenser microphone, meaning that it needs to be powered via phantom power, whereas you use a dynamic mic, which my technical criticism of Mindset Network generally would be that your voice is a little bit bass heavy.
Yeah, it is a bit. And
lacks a little bit of top end because you're using a dynamic mic as opposed to a condenser mic.
Yeah. Now, I could use a phantom. I mean, because I'm going into a mixer, I could plug in a mic that required phantom power, and it would work without issue because the mixer is producing that phantom power. But I might upgrade the mic. I'm thinking about maybe getting a new microphone to try and improve that. But overall, I think it sounds pretty. No,
it's sounding great. Yeah, obviously, but I think it could sound a little bit better. And there's a really cheap one, the Behringer C1, which I spoke to you about off air once. Yeah. And I think that's only 30 or 40 quid, so it's probably $50 or something.
Yeah, $50-$60.
Yeah. And I think that it would improve the quality that little bit to make it from great to amazing.
Now the M Audio, I remember looking at that a while ago and thinking about getting it because I wanted to get that before because what I used to use before the mixer is my old Nervous Teeth co-host Rod Rodriguez. He was a musician also, so he had a ton of equipment. And what he did was I needed a new microphone because the Radio Shack one just wasn't cutting it. So he said, well, I have an old mic and a cable. I'll give it to you, but it requires phantom power. And at the time when he told me this, I was like, what the hell is phantom power? I didn't even know what he was talking about. So he gave me the mic, and I remember plugging it into the computer. And when I recorded it, it was like that. I couldn't, it could hear nothing, even cranking up the volume because you needed the phantom power. But what I did have was from back in the mid-'90s, I had one of these little boxes for video editing where you could input a camcorder and a VCR and a microphone and mix it all together to do like real primitive cuts in analog video. So I remember I got that and powered that on and then plugged the microphone that Rod gave me into that, and that provided phantom power, and suddenly we were cooking with gas. It worked. You know, and I got that quality. So as time went on, I really didn't want to rely on this primitive, dinky video mixer. So I wanted to get something a little more. And I remember looking at those kind of audio interfaces that you have, the M Audio, and there's a bunch of different models you can get which go either output to USB or FireWire. I remember looking at those, but in the end I just settled on an analog mixer because it would give me real-time effects, and plus you can plug in a ton of audio sources into it. You got 12 inputs on this thing, so even though I only use like maybe 3 of those inputs, the potential for expansion is there, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you ever did expand the network to have phone-ins and all sorts of stuff, that would easily facilitate that.
Right. So what else you got? So you got the Rode N2 microphone, the USB interface, and that's pretty much what you have to get your sound into your computer, right? That's it.
I've got my 2 USB interfaces. Yeah, I did have a mixer, but the power supply died, and so I just chucked it away. I shouldn't have really, but there you go. So apart from that, I sometimes use Audacity. If I'm in Linux, then I use Audacity. But as we've discussed previously, it's not the greatest looking piece of software. It's very functional, but it looks like something from 1993. Yeah. But otherwise, I use Pro Tools. At the moment, Pro Tools 8, which isn't the latest version, but it's doing the job for me. I have used Cubase a little bit, and SoundForge is what I use for mastering and for wave editing. So if it's just one file, if there's nothing to be mixed together, then I'll use SoundForge.
Now, you mentioned Audacity. Now, a few weeks ago, we talked about the great Linux experiment, and this week I finally did get around to recording audio in Linux. And I know last week we talked about it briefly, and then I said that this week I will definitely do it. So I did. What I did was I plugged in my, I powered up my MacBook, booted into Linux, into Mint. And I downloaded Audacity. So I unplugged the USB interface from my Mac and plugged it into the USB port on my laptop, fired up Audacity. And the settings are very much similar, not exactly, but basically similar to the software I use on my Mac called Sound Studio. I use Sound Studio to record all my podcasts. And in Sound Studio, you go into the preferences pane in the software. And through software, you can choose the input and output for sound. Whatever you have coming into your Mac, you can choose, the onboard microphone or whatever system you're using for input. And I choose the USB audio system from the iMic coming out as the input. Now, the beauty of the iMic, the beauty of the Griffin iMic, and it's a relatively cheap analog digital converter. I think I paid like $60 for it. Is that it has sound input and output. So if you imagine a box, and on one side it has two inputs. One is for microphone and the other one is for speakers. So you have an input and output on one side, and on the other side is a USB cable. So effectively, I can have input and output all through this one device all at once, which allows me to record sound and play back sound directly at the same time in real time on my computer.
And what inputs has that got then? Is it XLR or quarter-inch jack? Or
it's I think it's a quarter-inch, the little headphone jack.
Oh, the little headphone.
The little one, yeah. So it has,
right, yeah.
So it has those two on there, right? So I have an adapter to turn it from the output from the mixer to the little headphone jack. So it has an audio output and an audio input on it on one side, and on the other side it has a USB cable which you plug into your computer. So what that means is that you can play and record sound from the same device at the same time, which is how I record Skype conversations.
Yeah.
Now, in the software for Sound Studio, you go into settings, and in the audio section, you can choose input and output. So I can have input from the USB audio and output to the speakers on my desktop, or output to another device, or whatever the case may be. So what I do is I choose for the input and the output, I choose the same device. I choose the USB audio system input and output at the same. So that means I can record and play back the same audio source or two different audio sources at the exact same time. Now, I was surprised to learn that when I went into Audacity, I have these same options, and that Linux will recognize the Griffin iMic, and I can go ahead and choose the input and output and do the exact same things I do in Sound Studio on the Mac, I can do in Linux. And I did that. So I fired it up, plugged in my microphone, and I recorded something in Audacity 100% under Linux, natively booted in. This was not a virtual machine or anything like that. This was pure Linux on the hard drive. And I recorded it, and I'm going to play it right now. And you'll be amazed, or rather...
I won't be amazed. I'll be, yeah. As I said before, with Linux, either it's going to work 100% or it just won't work at all.
Right. So it worked. And here's how it sounds. Let me just get the volume going here. And this is me talking on Linux. Here we go. Okay, this is a test of recording in Linux. I've connected my analog to digital output from my mixer directly into my laptop running Linux Mint 14.1. And I'm recording right now using the open source software Audacity. And everything appears to be working perfectly. So you can't even tell.
No, you could have.
I could have just been saying that right now.
You weren't playing that back. I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. I mean, it's so it worked flawlessly. I was very impressed. It worked. There was no headaches, no issues, no nothing. It just worked. So yeah.
So any plans to use it any further than just a test?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly could, but I don't see. I mean, if I was to switch to Linux, then yeah, at least now I know that my audio equipment and everything would function normally, and there wouldn't be any issues.
But you're still not tempted to make that switch then?
No, not because I've got too much time and money invested in the Mac world to switch. And you always have that thing, the grass is always greener, on the other side. Yeah. And you get there, and it's like, okay, now what? What's the point, right? As I said, as we said last week, the only advantage for me to switch to Linux would be cost.
And freedom.
No, not really.
Because you don't give a fuck about freedom and software freedom and stuff.
It's not really. I mean, I do, but it's not really. It's not really going to affect how I do my work, my stuff. It's cost wise, it would be an enormous advantage.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much
completely unrelated to audio and stuff. But continuing the experiment, the next thing that you should try and do is attempt to sync your iPhone with Linux.
Oh, God.
Or maybe if you've got an old iPhone.
I wouldn't even know where to start with that. I mean...
Yeah, well, I wouldn't, because I don't think I'll ever own an iPhone, but that would be interesting. Have you got an old iPhone that you could test it with? I do have an old iPhone, but I don't know. But I haven't powered it up in years. I would have to recharge it, but it doesn't have an account associated with it. It's just, so I don't think it would even work. If I powered it up, it would probably just say, okay, connect to iTunes. Yeah. I don't know. Well, maybe you could try with because presumably your phone is all backed up anyway on your various Macs.
Yes.
So if you plugged it in and it just wiped it, then you could just resync it from your Mac.
It wouldn't be the end of the world. Yeah, I could fix it if it wiped it. But I don't know if that would even work. I mean, have you ever heard of reports of people using iPhones in Linux?
Yeah, there are ways to do it. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, and depending on which model you've got, and it's been a long time since I've looked into it, but I know it is possible with various, I don't know if it's Rhythmbox or various music apps where you can sync your music, especially if it's DRM free, which all of yours is now. That makes it a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, the only issue I would have would be with movies and TV shows, but for all the audio stuff I have, would be no problem at all. So as far as software, so we've gone over basically the hardware side of things that I use for podcasts. So for software, for recording and doing basic editing on the software, on podcasts, I use Sound Studio 4 from Felt Tip Software. It's a great little application. It's very, very fast, very easy to use. It's a breeze to edit audio with it, and it has some basic filters. You can do compressor, normalize, and all that stuff with it. So I use that. I also use an application called Soundboard from Ambrosia Software, which is a Mac software company. And this is a great little application. It basically gives you a soundboard on your desktop where you can play music, sound effects, anything you want in real time. I can have people cheering, or.
Is that where you have the bumpers? The
I can have, hey, thank you very much, pleasure, things like that, or anything at all.
Oh yes.
Playing directly into the podcast in real time. Now, all of these sound effects, of course, you could go back and add them in post. You could go back and edit them directly into the podcast later, and you wouldn't really be able to tell. But that's just another component and another time suck. It just adds more time to the editing process. Whereas if you're doing it, while the show is going on,
oh yes,
it still sounds great, still works, and it cuts down in time. So I use Sound Studio to record, Soundboard to play music and or sound effects directly into the show, and I also use GarageBand from Apple if I really need to go in and layer lots of sounds. I'll use that. Now, GarageBand, I guess, would be the closest to Pro Tools that you use, but no doubt it's very primitive compared to Pro Tools. But I think it's the basic concept of layering different sounds all together.
Yeah, well, it's a multi-track digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
That's what, so does Sound Studio 4 not have the multi-track capability then?
No, not that I'm aware.
That's more like SoundForge then. It's just one track, a wave editor.
Exactly. Sound Studio is very much like Audacity.
Audacity. Well, although Audacity does have multi-track functionality, although it sort of hides it quite well, but you can do that Pro Tools style multi-track mixing in there. It's
Sound Studio is very much like Audacity, just a lot prettier and easier to use, but it's basically the same thing. But whereas GarageBand, you can go in and layer sounds. You can actually have separate inputs too. If you have, you could have like a guitar, bass, drums, all separate, and then mix them all together in GarageBand.
Is that something that comes with Mac OS?
Yeah.
Is it built into it? Okay.
It's not built into it, but you do get it free with every Mac. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Whenever you buy a new computer, you get it. You get the whole iLife suite, and GarageBand is a component of iLife, and it's not. I guess you would call it maybe prosumer. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. It's very intuitive to use, very easy to use, and you can layer sounds, and you can actually use it to create not only a podcast but music or whatever. It's a great.
Does it have effects then?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can add.
Does it support third-party effects though?
I don't know.
Like, what's it called? Complete brain fart. But Artas is what the VSTs. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I don't know whether it does or not, but it comes with a vast library of sounds built in, ready to go. So there's a huge library of different sounds and sound effects and guitar loops and musical loops and all ready to go right off the bat as soon as you turn on your computer.
I'm just looking up now whether or not it does have VSTs. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a major stumbling block because Cubase and FL Studio and loads of others support these VST plugins.
Right.
Like there's a Waves suite of plugins with compressors and EQs and everything.
Yeah, that's probably more for the pro. I mean, GarageBand is not like a pro app. It's not a professional application. But if you know what you're doing with it, you can get very close to pro grades. But
yeah, I'm sure if you're doing something like a podcast, that's quite straightforward in terms of the number of inputs and tracks and everything you're using. Like
his Logic and Pro Tools and things like that. It's just GarageBand taken to the next level. But but for what I use it for, I think it's a great piece of software. You can do some amazing things with it. I know that Joe Dunn, when he does his Mindset Dailies, that's 100% created in GarageBand with all the layering and the effects and everything is all done purely from stock GarageBand sounds, and the result is pretty good.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So it is obviously very good for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's cool. So that's pretty much the three pieces of software I use to create podcasts: Sound Studio 4, Soundboard from Ambrosia, and GarageBand. And then on the hardware side, I got my mixer, my mic, and the analog to digital converter, and of course Skype for recording all the conversations.
Yeah, but although we might consider using Google services, maybe.
Yeah, if we go to video, which hopefully will be the next logical progression for Mindset and its series of podcasts, would be to go to add like a video component to the podcasts. Then Google Hangouts and things like that might be the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through some of the stuff that you use. So you got the Rode mic, the M Audio Duo, and the M-Box MIDI. Now, why do you have two analog to digital boxes?
Well, you can't use Pro Tools without specifically DigiDesign Pro Tools hardware. So you can't, for example, use my M Audio box with Pro Tools. It just won't work. Part of the DRM, I suppose you might call it, or copy protection, is that when Pro Tools starts up, it looks for specific hardware, and there's loads of different ones. From the smallest one, mine's just got one mic input and one line input, very, very simple, and just a stereo output and headphones, and it goes right up to huge mixing desks and all sorts of stuff. But it looks for that hardware, and if it hasn't got it, then it says, no, I'm not starting, fuck you.
Okay.
So it's very, very proprietary, even in terms of the hardware you can use. Now, I hear that there are ways around that, and you have various cracked versions that will allow you to use other hardware. And there is actually Pro Tools M-powered, which is a sort of slimmed down prosumer, I suppose you might say, version of Pro Tools that allows you to use various M-Audio sound cards, unfortunately not including my one. So, but I have got an old desktop that I don't use anymore, and that's got an M-Audio audiophile 2496, which is a PCI card, and that is supported by it. But yeah, that's why I've got the DigiDesign box, the M-Audio, not M-Audio, M-Box Mini.
So with that, you can then put your vocals, your guitar, or whatever the case may be directly into Pro Tools, and then manipulate it from there on. Yeah.
Now, the reason that I don't use that to speak to you now, I am not using that to speak to you now, is because although it shows up in Linux, I can't get it to work, is the bottom line. It's when I go into the settings, it's there, it's recognized, it should be working, and you can play back through it, but for some reason the microphone is just not picked up by it.
Right.
So I'm sure if I really fucked about with it, I could make it work, but I just didn't have time to do that. So the first show I think we did in Windows. Well, I did in Windows, for shame. And but then I thought, hang on, I've got this old box that I used to have, because I was always a desktop user for my music stuff. But then I actually acquired an old ThinkPad. Someone gave me it. And so I thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to record stuff while I was out and about. So I bought this M Audio Duo.
Yeah.
An awfully long time ago. And so I dug that out recently after the first show, thinking, I wonder if that is supported in Linux and will work with Skype. And sure enough, as this is... Well, as the following 10 shows have been testament to, it works perfectly.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, so now I've got them both on my desk cluttering up the place. And I have to unplug the mic and plug it into
the other one, right?
And it's a real fucking pain in the ass, to be honest.
So the only way around that would be just to use Windows.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I did for the first one, and I think the first Mindset podcast that I was on, but thereafter, although Skype is much better in Windows, I must admit.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, as Microsoft owns it.
Exactly.
Now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but that's why I've got the two different boxes. But I don't use the M Audio one to do any music with. I use that just for the podcasting.
Right. Okay, so it's mainly then you got Pro Tools for your music work, and do you still use SoundForge and or Audacity, or is that just something that you started using and has progressed past?
No, well, they are each of those three programs, SoundForge, Audacity, and Pro Tools, all play their own role within, and indeed Cubase as well sometimes. they all play their own role within what I do. When I'm making music, I generally do it all in Pro Tools, record it all into Pro Tools, mix it all into Pro Tools, and then bounce it out, sort of export the mix. And then I close Pro Tools, open up SoundForge, and import that mix into SoundForge just as a stereo file, and that's where I do my mastering.
Gotcha.
That's where I make it really loud and do a little bit of EQ on it.
Right.
And then I export that to a WAV. And because the old version of SoundForge that I've got only has a certain number of MP3 conversions, and also it's a bit old and just doesn't have up-to-date MP3 conversions, then I boot into Linux and convert them into MP3 using Lame in Audacity.
Gotcha.
So each one is a step in the process. Basically.
Right.
And Cubase is what I used to use because I've got an electric drum kit also, which is a really shitty, it's Mideli DD501, which is the cheapest, shittest electric drum kit you could buy. And the sounds out of it are just like a Casio keyboard drum sounds. But it's got USB out, and I plug that into Windows, and it's just instantly recognized. And it just is a MIDI interface, basically. So then originally I was using Cubase, but then I've made it work in Pro Tools. I can hook it up with a thing called Addictive Drums, which has got really realistic sounding drums, which is, if you've heard any of my music, which including the theme tune and the bumpers in this show, that's all with Addictive Drums. So it's not actually real drums, because there's no way in my flat I could get away with knocking the shit out of my... I've got a real drum kit, but it's just all in boxes.
Yeah.
And so, I just used that in Pro Tools originally in Cubase. So, lots of different bits of software you doing different jobs.
Yeah, it's same with me. I mean, even though the three pieces of software that I've named are what I use them interchangeably. You know, they all kind of fit together and use different parts. Like if I'm layering something, then I'll convert to MP3 directly in GarageBand. In other words, I'll build it and then I'll export it out directly as an MP3 and choose the quality, whether it's going to be stereo or mono or whatever the case may be, and just output it as that, and then it just spits out an MP3 on my desktop, and then from there I can import that into iTunes and then do all the metadata and all that stuff. Yeah. Add like album artwork and blah blah blah. And with Sound Studio, if I do a show that doesn't require any layering, in other words, if all of the sound and music and sound effects and everything is done live during the show, when I'm done, then I just need to trim the ends to get rid of the silence, and then from that point I can go ahead and spit it out directly from Sound Studio, because it has the Lame MP3 encoder built into it. Just spit that out as either a stereo or a mono MP3, depending on the bit rate that I choose, and that spits that out directly to the desktop as an MP3 file. Then I can go ahead and import that into iTunes, do the metadata, and I'm done. So there's a very quick turnaround. Now, when we do the Mindset podcast on a Sunday, that's entirely done live. There's no post editing or anything. It's just done on the fly from beginning to end. All the music, all the clips, everything is done as it happens. And then I just spit it out as an MP3 at the end, add the metadata, and upload. Because if you are a regular listener, you'll know that the turnaround from the live show to the MP3 being published and available for download is very, very fast.
It's about half an hour, isn't it, from the end of the show to being available for download? I was amazed the first time. I couldn't believe you could do it that quickly.
It's very quick. So there's no time wasted. I just knock it out. Because the show is broadcast live at the same time, so we get there's a bunch of listeners that listen live while it's on, and then once the show's done, I then just save it, do minimal editing, minimal trimming here and there,
do the intro, and then that's it.
Right, and then I'll run normalize on it to normalize the audio. Then I'll run it through compressor, and then I'll just spit it out as an MP3. And add the metadata and upload. Boom, it's live. And it usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get that done.
Yeah, and are we going to let people in on the secrets of this show then, about the editing?
Well, there's also, even with this show, there's minimal editing on.
Well, it's all edited live, isn't it? So if we fuck it up, we say, all right, let's pause, and then we just back it up, and then just go again as if, and try and make it as seamless as possible.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, occasionally mistakes are made. It's very rare, but it does happen occasionally. And at that point, because we're not broadcasting this show live, we can't edit on the fly. So if like, the audio goes dead, or we say something wrong, or whatever the case may be,
Skype crashes, or
Skype crashes, whatever, we can go back and fix that very, very quickly, and re-edit it live, so that the resulting end MP3 for a listener listening, it's just, nobody knows. It's just a regular show, because we're not doing it live as in broadcasting. We can go back and edit on the fly, and we're not wasting time. We're not like recording the show and then spending hours re-listening and going through and trimming this and trimming that, that's just a massive time waste.
I can see the argument, and I wanted to get into podcasting for a long, long time, because obviously I'm into audio and I'm really into podcasts. I listen to them all the time. I listen to loads of different ones. I've got a massive queue and all that. And I really wanted to get into it. And what inspired me most to get into it was my friends Dan and Fab from Linux Outlaws.
Yeah.
And how they do it is just completely different from how we do it. Although they broadcast it live via YouTube Hangouts.
Yeah.
Hangouts on YouTube, whatever it's called. They record themselves locally and then sync it later. So they have a really good quality WAV at both ends, and then one of them sends it to the other one, depending on who's going to edit it.
Sure.
And then they sync it up and edit it that way, and it sounds really crisp quality. But the turnaround from live show, sometimes they record on a Monday and release on a Sunday afterwards.
That's insane.
And well, it's I can understand why that happens. It's because they are really focused on the quality of the audio, whereas for us, we cover news stories, and there is a topical aspect to the show. So it's more important to us, we feel, to get the show out quickly than it is to have the audio 100% perfect. So although I sound pretty clear and reasonably good, if we did it the other method, where I recorded myself as a WAV and then we synced it up later, it would sound that little bit better.
Right.
But we're willing to take that. The
improvement in quality to make it sound a little bit better is the amount of time it would take to do that. It doesn't equate. Would the quality sound better? Absolutely. Would it be a night and day difference? No.
No, because the thing is, once you've converted it to a relatively low quality MP3 anyway, like we do, to keep the size down, really, does it make that much difference?
No,
not really, I don't think. And I'm certainly happy with the way we're doing it now. And this has really opened my eyes to how it's possible to turn around stuff really quickly.
Sure.
And it just seems much more efficient to me.
Absolutely.
To do it this way.
We all have lives and things to do and families to deal with, and when you're spending that much time on something that you could just knock out and be done with, it doesn't make sense. And for the average listener who's going to sit there and listen to it, I mean, the quality is good. I think the quality that we produce is very good. It sounds very professional. It sounds great. But is it, audiophile quality with, your awesome headphones listening? No, of course not. And nobody cares about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's more about the content, isn't it?
Exactly.
If you're doing independent podcasting like this, then it's all about what we're saying, not the quality of the audio file and everything.
Right. But it's got to be a sufficient quality. I mean, you don't.
Yeah, it's got to be listenable, hasn't it? And I think that what we do is certainly listenable.
You don't want to be listening to two guys blab about computers recording the with the microphone built into their laptops. You want to have at least decent quality.
Well, there's one show I think it's called the Linux Link Tech Show, and that's been going for years and years and years, like nearly 10 years. And I listened to one of them, and I could not believe that a show that was that old sounded so shit. I mean, what the guys were talking about was great.
It's the sound quality was so bad, yeah.
Yeah, if they ever hear this, then sorry guys, the content was great, but the sound quality was shit. And have a word with yourselves. It's not that hard.
Yeah,
you can for $100 you can buy an interface and a reasonable microphone.
Totally. All right, then. Well, I think that kind of covers 99% of our audio goodness, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed that. Let's do some feedback. So what have people been saying about the Mind Tech podcast, Joe?
Not a huge amount, really. There's been some discussion of Linux, as usual, sort of follow-up on the Raspberry Pi stuff, and obviously talking about Apache and stuff. But yeah, just sort of the usual suspects in the Facebook group talking about the usual stuff, really. So nothing standout, really.
Well, people who regularly listen to the Mindset Network have kind of gotten on board with the whole Linux open source deal. I think there's a lot more awareness of that now in the Mindset group. People who listen to all of our podcasts and have taken on board some of the stuff that we've talked about on the MindTech podcast. So I find that pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day about who are we aimed at doing this MindTech podcast, and it strikes me that we're aimed at the kind of people like I was a few years ago, curious about technical things and wanting to know about Linux and stuff, and kind of closet geeks, I suppose you would say, rather than people who do a tech job, sysadmins and people who are working with Linux every day or whatever, or programmers. That's not kind of who we're aimed at, really. It's more...
Well, it's for casual users. I mean, we get a lot of people... I've gotten messages from people who, rabidly listen to all of the shows on the Mindset Network, but don't even own a computer. They do everything through their tablet or their phone or things of that nature. And learning about these technologies and Linux and open source and what you can use your computer for and how you can use it, this is all brand new to them. So it's fascinating. It's like a breath of fresh air,
Yeah, well, I've definitely opened up a few eyes with regards to Linux and stuff. So yeah, it's all good, and hopefully, as we progress, we'll get more and more people into this sort of stuff. And yeah.
Excellent. All right, then let's wrap it up for this edition of the MindTech podcast. This has been episode 11. Joe, we're going to put a link to your website because I know that you're going to keep updating technical topics there, so we can get people to take a look at that on your tutorials and the like. And we'll be back next week with more topics, more news, and more conversation that'll be very technically orientated. And until then, farewell, good brothers.
See you later.